Planning Commission on this 24th day of October. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So I believe we need to take attendance now.
Thank you. Chair Kevin Rooney.
Here.
Vice Chair Mario Maciel Jr.
Here.
Commissioner Edwin Borcas.
Here.
Commissioner Edith Flores.
Present.
Commissioner Christopher Sines.
Present.
All right. We have public communications. You will have 3 minutes to speak on anything that isn't on the calendar, and state your name and residence, please. Seeing no one wants to speak, I now close public communications. We have the consent calendar next. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Need a motion for the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
So I'm abstaining from the vote. I don't know if that's necessary.
Were you there?
I was not here.
The minutes indicate that everybody was here. Is that incorrect? Wednesday, August 22nd?
No. August, we're okay.
August 22nd is the minutes. Is that correct, Esther? Yeah.
Oh.
All right, so we all accept the minutes. And now we go into the next, what is,
Item.
yeah, the next item, I'm looking for it here. Okay, I believe that's the ADU with you over there. Here it is.
Honorable Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Patricia Garcia. I'm the interim associate planner representing the planning staff. And
by the laptop on the side?
the laptop. The case before you is zoning code amendment number AZC-186, an amendment to the City of Baldwin Parks Municipal Code, Chapter 153, Sections 153.040, .020, 153.120, 0.30, 153.150.100, and 153.220.050 relating to accessory dwelling units. If the Commissioner may recall, on September 26th, you heard the staff report and the continued public hearing for the zoning code amendment relating to accessory dwelling units. During that public planning commission meeting, planning staff addressed City Council concerns regarding traffic and public safety and identified the substandard streets. Engineering staff drafted definition of substandard streets for the purpose of the ADU, and it reads as follows. Substandard streets, for the purpose of allowing/disallowing accessory dwelling units, means a public or private street with a width of 30 feet or less measured from the faces of the curb, thus unable to accommodate street parking and or passage for through traffic and emergency services. ADU disqualifiers include a lot which fronts a substandard street, a lot located within 30 feet of a school bus stop, and a lot located on a street with the permit restrictions. In order to address the the comments provided on September 26th meeting regarding lot size and allowable ADU size, staff has provided modifications that address those concerns, as shown in the chart above. The previous ADU had a 8,000 square foot minimum to be eligible to construct. We have eliminated that lot size minimum and created a sliding scale. And that sliding scale is shown above. Depending on the lot size would be how big you can construct your ADU. There's also a distinguishing factor between the maximum allowed for attached and for detached accessory dwelling units. It is staff's opinion that the proposed changes address both the City Council and Planning Commission's concerns. Therefore, the staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt Resolution PC 18-18, entitled A Resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Baldwin Park, recommending the City Council approve Zoning Code Amendment Number AZC-186, amending Chapter 153, Zoning Code Sections 153.040.020, 153.120.050, 153.150.100, and 153.220.050 of the city's municipal code relating to accessory dwelling units. And this concludes the presentation for EDU.
Thank you. Oh, the consultant for the ADU is here. So would you like to come up and speak?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I think that the modifications to the ordinance as proposed are in keeping with the state legislation, and it's also a more flexible approach for the city, for the residents who had a concern over the fact that the various lot sizes in the city weren't adequately reflected in the previously drafted ordinance. And I think that this is kind of a satisfactory solution for both parties, the city and the residents. So I would also concur with staff and support the recommendation to adopt the ordinance as proposed.
All right. Any questions? Thank you very much. We'll now open up the hearing to the residents. State your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Glenn Garcia, representing owners on Main Avenue. Good evening, commissioners and staff. Looking at the sliding scale, it is a vast improvement. Thank you for the consideration and the help of the staff members and the contractor on the fairness of the way it looks right now. However, a technicality was brought up to me by one of the owners that I didn't mention last time, that we can't build. The little technicality is this: you're requiring that the property owner lives at the site. Now, recap, our family members got together, we took over financing and taken over responsibilities for our elderly. That included the mortgage of the house to get away from that high interest rate. We had to get another one, so now they are no longer the owners of the property. But our family member, another one, he's going to have his family living in the house, being the caregiver to our elderly that are going to be in the granny flat. We can't do that. And even with the trust, we talked to an attorney, they still can't do it because he's not living it. So our hands are tied. So we looked up the state requirement, and the state says for the ADUs, it's not required that the property owner live on site. It is for the J's, the juniors, that's fine. So if you were looking at that, or maybe the city attorney can come up with an alternative modification. We're not sure, but you can see now our hands are tied. We got this close, and after rereading all the submittal again, this is the only thing holding us up, so we appreciate it. we reconsider that one section. I'll be willing to help out too. Thank you. Questions?
I would like to call the consultant back up to see if she has any ideas on that.
Yes, in response to the concern, the state only in the enabling legislation only allows for cities to impose that regulation if they wish. Most cities, a lot of cities have, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of cities have imposed that restriction that the property owner live on the premises. Other cities have not, primarily due to enforceability issues. And so they have just decided it wasn't an issue that they needed to include, or a provision they needed to include. So we provided that in the draft for the city to consider, and it's totally up to the commissioners and the city council as to whether they want to include that as a requirement. It's optional. It is not a required standard for your ordinance.
All right. And that is included in ours?
Currently, the requirement is in the draft ordinance.
Okay.
So I think it's subject to discussion.
Okay. Thank you. I got a question. Would you be able to come back up? Sorry about that. You were talking about the interest rate. Was it one of the siblings that had better credit, or?
Right. What ended up happening is, well, it's under my father-in-law, and he had almost like a 9, almost a 10% interest rate. And since he was retired, so many years removed from employment, they only get one Social Security check. They couldn't handle it. And as he started getting senility, if you will, the family members decided, one, we can, well, the interest rates were down to 4 and 5%, cut that down. We can use some money to build the Randy Flat, and that'll help out with the family there. And well, you know my system, but that was part of it.
Okay, so because I was just trying to understand, the sibling that doesn't live with you, she has good credit, so you used her credit.
Oh yeah, because she's the one that took the responsibility for that and was able to. Yeah, right.
All right, that's understandable.
Yeah, so.
All right.
And just to let you know who we're dealing with a little bit here, if I may, our family members were volunteers at the senior center for quite a few years and were nominated to be the king and queen in the parade. So hopefully you can return the favor back for us.
All right, thank you.
So a brief question, if I may, and this is directed to our city attorney. So I understand the intent of this provision. I understand why it's being placed in the ordinance. However, it doesn't take into account these exceptional cases that Mr. Garcia is bringing up. So is it possible, because I understand the importance of this provision and it being included, so I understand the reason we're passing this ADU ordinance is that somebody wouldn't have to come and file an application and come before the planning commission to get approval to go forward with the ADU. But would we be able to kind of, I guess, manipulate that provision where if somebody didn't want, or like if somebody didn't live in the residence, they can appeal that to the planning commission? So So I guess what I'm trying to say is I understand why the homeowner needs to live on the premises and then rent out the ADU, but there's also there's cases where it would make sense to approve the ADU even though the homeowner didn't reside at the premises. So is there any happy compromise in the middle?
You know what? We're going to have to think about this one because it seems that there could be a compromise because it's all or nothing right now.
Right.
But I'm not sure how we would word that compromise. I don't think you'd want an appeal because that would put up another hurdle, right, in front of ADUs. The ADUs were meant to remove those hurdles.
Absolutely.
But maybe there's a hardship compromise
Okay.
where staff can come up with an idea or a concept of what hardship equates. It could be financial, familial, and then under that definition of hardship, this, for example, the situation here would apply.
Right.
So yes, let us put that. Luis, can we get that in writing?
Are we saying that we could move forward with an approval with the condition, or to come up with an exception for hardship cases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can put something together.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Now, my question to that would be, are we going to be setting ourselves up for a lawsuit if someone doesn't agree with that?
No, that ruling of hardship would be administrative, and they would have to appeal to the Planning Commission if they didn't meet the definition of hardship. So that would include all of the due process issues that are necessary to protect us from lawsuits.
All right. Thank you. Are there any more questions on this specific issue? Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Come on up, state your name and residence, and you got 3 minutes, Manuel.
My name is Manuel Dave. I live on Hornbrook Avenue. It's the city of Baldwin Park, California. Thank you and good evening. I just want to touch base real quick. I know we touched it last time about the no garage replacement. If there was an ADU, we were using the garage to convert to part of the house. We just want to make sure that we're still okay, that we don't have to replace it with another garage. I know that was one of my questions. I actually have like 6 or 7 questions. I hope you guys can be patient with me. Another question I have is the setback. I know currently I was told that we need a 20-foot setback for an ADU from the back lot. I was just wondering if there's something we can, if that's true, or if there's something we can kind of change on that to maybe reconsider maybe doing like a 4 or 5 foot setback, because I know some of the houses, if we build them 20 foot away from the wall, it literally really comes up to the really close to the other house. I know Karen Chappell of the city of Berkeley, California. She's a city planning professor, and I know that I believe she built one, and she was allowed to build one 4 to 5 foot from the back, which worked for her. And I'm just saying we can maybe consider that also, because I think that would be a big benefit for a lot of us. Another question is for the license. Are we going to need a license for an ADU? I was told yes, and I was told no. So I just wanted to bring that up. And a separate meter. Are we going to be required to have a separate meter for the ADU, whether it's attached or detached? And we found out the square footage, and thank you guys for the square footage that you guys clarified for us. And also another one is for non-conforming. If my house is currently non-conforming, if I build an ADU, whether attached or detached, do I have to bring my current home up to the current standards, or does it kind of get grandfathered in, left alone, and then I can just build on without having to mess with the first house? I was told that I had to bring it up to date, which kind of makes it really hard, because then I would have to put money into that and then still make the ADU. But I've heard that some people were able to leave their house alone in certain cities, and they can go as long as the new ADU is brought up to code. And my last one is, by any chance, is there going to be any incentives that you guys maybe are thinking of the city to somewhat bless the people of the community, to kind of maybe encourage them or to help them just a little bit? I know it benefits us, but I was just curious if there is any incentives or anything you guys are thinking to promote the ADUs, because I don't think a lot of people know about it also. So that was my last question, and just thank you so much. I know it was a few questions. I hope you guys got them all, but that's it. Thank you guys for everything you guys are doing, and again, I'm happy to be back in the city of Baldwin Park. So that's it.
Thank you. To answer the last question, though, for incentives, I believe that has to go through the city council.
Okay, okay. So we would have to
Yes.
ask them. Okay.
And for all your questions, since we got Miss Deborah Lynn here,
I can overwhelm her right now.
I think it would be best to ask her to come back up to the mic if she could answer some of those questions. It would be very much appreciated by the Planning Commission.
I can leave you my questions.
The garage replacement issue. Excuse me. The ordinance and the legislation state that if you are taking away parking or converting a garage, you're taking away any existing parking as part of the construction of an ADU, and you are within you meet the criteria, if your location's within the criteria that are established in here, you're exempt from having to provide any additional parking or replacement parking. That includes the distance from the bus stop, or mass transit, I should say, which includes a bus stop. And I think in this city that's pretty much prevalent everywhere in the city. So I think that answers that question. But those are the conditions under which you don't have to provide replacement parking. The setback of 20 feet, this ordinance says that ADUs have to comply with the setback requirements of the zoning district within which the lot is located. So if 20 feet is the setback requirement for a unit, then that is the setback requirement for an ADU, with the one exception, and that is an ADU constructed above a garage. The maximum setback you can require is 5 feet by law. So I would think that's just subject to discussion with staff and the commission as to whether you want to grant different setbacks for an ADU, but generally the state says you can impose the requirements of the zoning district on the ADU. License, I'm not aware of any licensing requirements required for an ADU. Separate meters, I'm not clear on that one. I would have to look into an answer on that, but I don't believe separate meters are required at this time. What's this ADU? Sorry. ADU.
Oh, well, the square footage, but I think they touched.
Oh, okay, okay. All righty. As for the nonconforming issue, no, a legal nonconforming unit would remain nonconforming. If it's illegal, if it's not constructed with permits, then it has to be legalized before you can add on to it or anything like that. With a nonconforming structure, if you add an ADU onto it, right now the way the ordinance reads and your zoning code reads is any new addition to a nonconforming has to comply with the zoning code requirements for that district.
For that, I have a question. If someone has, let's say they had a converted garage already, how would they check if it's up to code? Would they have to tear down all the drywall or?
Well, it would depend on if the converted garage was done legally. If the garage is currently converted for some purpose and that's legal, and they have a permit for that, and I would not know, it would be a case-by-case basis, but usually in most cities, if you convert a garage to another use, you have to replace your parking that you've taken away with the garage. Generally, that's not speaking to ADU issues, but so if you have a garage that's been converted and it's legal, then if it's legal, then it's got to have a permit, and to have a permit, it has to have building inspections. So
I think in most cases we're talking about illegal conversions.
Pardon me?
In most cases we're talking about illegal conversion.
Yeah.
No, an illegal conversion, you cannot convert. If you cannot legalize your illegal conversion unless you've brought it up to building codes.
Okay, and that means you'd have to tear it down and redo it.
It depends on the conversion. I think it all comes down to what the building official looks at and says, well, if it's the foundation that's not, if it goes all the way down to the foundation as being not to specifications of the state building code, then yes, they have to redo the foundation and up. But, it just depends on the case.
Yeah.
Honorable Commissioner, just to add to that, there may be two different types of nonconforming issues being discussed here. One is zoning and setbacks where with new construction, if there's a legal nonconforming status of a building, we try not to further contribute to its nonconformity and maintain its current distances, or at least design it so that the additions comply with current standards. With respect to upgrading, if the gentleman was referring to the legal nonconforming electrical and structural issues with the house, like Debbie said, those would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The main charge of the plan checker is to make sure that what's being presented on plans makes sense for fire safety code issues. So when they go out in the field and they look at these, and if the windows are not to spec for fire safety exits, that they will have to change that, for instance. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the whole structure has to be torn down, but certain aspects of the structure, certain elements have to be brought up to code for fire safety issues. Windows is one of the majority change-outs that happens, and also electrical conduiting might have to be upgraded to make sure that there's no short in the house or short in the garage conversion. So they're taking a look at safety aspects of what needs to be corrected. And again, if there's an addition to an existing house where the new addition is an ADU, but it's now going to have upgraded paneling or upgraded wiring and circuitry, and the house is very old and the original paneling will not sustain the addition, or it just, there's just mismatch of different wirings and codes that need to be brought up to speed, more than likely the whole house with the addition would have to be brought up to code just because of fire safety issues again. So those are the types of concerns that plan checkers and inspectors will look at. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so what I'm understanding is he can appeal for an exception if he needed to for the structure in the back for the 20 feet to, yeah. Can he appeal to the planning commission?
No.
No?
Filing a variance.
Variance, they could file for a variance.
Commissioners, just a little more food for thought on this occupancy clause here. I would imagine that in carrying out the request for ADUs and you're going through plan check and you state on your application you're the owner, and so you're doing the ADU, and that's how verifiable it's going to get. But I'm kind of concerned also with the clause as written in the future. Let's say the owner that's occupying the property sells, and then somebody else comes in and it's already built. I'm just concerned about how to enforce to ensure that the owner is on site, after construction has happened, after the certificates of occupancy have been issued. So I wasn't around when this clause was first installed in the original ADU ordinance, so I don't have the background for it, but I just wanted you guys to think about, what this clause may mean and whether or not it's enforceable. So just wanted to put that out there.
I know that the question was posed in regard to the business license. My understanding is any home being rented in the city is required to pull a business license, just out of my own experience. So not that I'm saying that we need to impose business license on, not that we have to impose business license on the ADUs, but I think that might help be a yearly verification that the homeowner is living on the premises when making sense. So if our concern is that in the future the homeowner no longer resides and rents it out to, if they were required to pull a business license, then through that process there'd be some sort of verification.
That is one approach, yes.
Well, any other questions from the planning commissioners about this? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I think the interim associate planner brought to my attention a point that I should clarify in
Okay.
response to the gentleman's questions.
Yes.
If you are converting a garage, and it's a detached garage, which is defined as an accessory structure, that can be converted to an ADU without having to provide replacement parking, and it can be converted in place. It's not like it has to be torn down and reconstructed to the setbacks. The setback requirements apply to newly constructed units, and those are only units that are either detached from the main house or attached to the main house in some fashion. So I don't know if that clarifies the gentleman's
parking
question.
issue?
Yeah, I understood that he was asking about replacement parking, and no, you don't have to
you-
provide replacement parking. And yes, you can convert an existing legally permitted garage to an ADU in its current configuration,
All
as long
right.
as it's a detached garage.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. I hope that answered all of those questions. And- Go ahead.
I guess it was just because my house is currently, I was telling you guys before, it's 800 square feet, legally non-conforming, but the house I wanted to build in the back, that's what I want to make sure if I could build that to the code, to the code you guys have now without touching my existing house. It was not more of a garage. Does that make more sense? Because yes, so I have my house, and then I wanted to build something in the back. In that case. Sorry.
Be my guest.
Okay, so, yes, and in that case, his new structure would have to conform to the zoning code requirements of his zoning district for setbacks.
Okay, so it would be the new structure, not his existing house.
The new structure, correct.
All right.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
For the non-conforming home, how big is it? What's the square footage? 800.
To be 1,050. So right now it's currently 800 square feet.
So I'm wondering if, let's see, if they build a new home, would that be able to be converted into the ADU, the non-conforming home?
See up here? What's it?
When you want to build an ADU on a lot, and now we have this sliding scale of lot size and allowable maximum ADU size that goes with it, your ADU can either, your ADU would be the newly constructed unit. The homeowner, the way we have it currently written, for a homeowner to reside on the property, they can reside in either the existing unit or the new one. Doesn't matter.
And could we, so it has to be for sure a 20-foot setback, or is that something that maybe we can, I guess every case could be different? Because like the house is there's nothing behind me but a 25-foot building, because I live behind businesses. So I understand for privacy, but like behind me there's nothing there, so that's why I figured would it be okay if we went 4 to 5 feet from the back wall instead of 20 feet in that?
This is a new law for us too. I believe, are we able to? Is he able to appeal it to conform to the 5 feet distance, or is that set at the 20 feet?
You always have an opportunity to request a yard variance, for setbacks. If in fact, and I'd have to take a look at the code again, whether or not accessory structures have a different setback requirement than the main structure. Most zoning codes do. Maybe since I've only been here 4 months, I have to double check the zoning code if that's a possibility, that there is separate accessory structure setback requirements. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe our staff might have come across that, but at this point I can't really respond to that.
Okay, I'm just wondering because I know we've had people asking for exceptions, well, businesses asking for exceptions to the codes, and they've gotten approved, so I'm wondering if the ADUs fall under the same guidelines.
Well, there is administrative adjustments that we can grant administratively. In my position or public works director, different directors can become a zoning administrator to do an interpretation and or alleviate from the code through an adjustment of, I think, 10 to 20% is what's allowed without having to come to your commission. Beyond that, then it would be a yard variance that would have to come to your audience here.
Okay.
Question, is there a distance requirement between the two buildings? Like,
Usually it's a 10-foot requirement, but I don't know for sure off the top of my head with your zoning code. We'd have to take a look. But there is usually a distance requirement between buildings, yes.
Yes.
thank you.
I know that for houses, it's usually 5 feet from your property line on both sides, so that equals the 10 feet. And if you put a second story, it has to be 5 feet in further than that.
Yeah, there is further step back as you go up.
Yes.
It's usually another 2 feet or so. So instead of 5, it might be 7 for the second story. And it all depends on which zone you're laying in.
All right. So I believe with that, you'd have to, from 20 to 5, I think that would be over the 10 or 20%. So you'd probably have to file for an exception. But knowing there's a building behind you, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be able to be done.
Thank you.
And for the applicant that's had the question, you can always come to the counter, and we can always do a consultation. And part of the process too is, well, actually take that back. Normally, when you submit for a project, there's a design review committee. The ADU is supposed to steer you away from that and be administrative. But still, if you've got a different set of parameters on your property, we'll more than gladly consult with you, with your plans, and try to get you the best path of least resistance to get what you need to get.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
On the same topic, excuse me, regarding the rear setback on property lines, if you would also consider that on most houses, when you get below 6,000 square feet, 7,000 square feet, if you have that 20-foot setback requirement that this does, then we're cutting back the square footage of the actual home down to around 500 in order to keep that 20-foot section. And other cities, what they've done also is because of utility poles rolling against the back, they've put 10-foot requirements, so at least maybe that would be another option too. There would be a lot of exceptions that you may be looking at in the Planning Commission on that specific property, along with easements for utilities on that back line. In other words, 10 feet on one side, 10 feet on another side, that's a guaranteed easement for utilities. As a suggestion also.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. All right. I believe that we need to make a motion with the exception that he brought up earlier. And is there a motion to pass this with the exception that was brought up?
Hardship exception.
Hardship exception. Sorry, I'm thinking Dodgers. Is there a motion to pass this with the hardship exception?
I'll make a motion to pass it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes.
This goes to City Council for consideration.
Yes, now it'll go to City Council. Hopefully it'll be done, and by close to the end of the year, you'll be able to start building your ADUs. All right. Next item. All right.
Good evening, Honorable Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Melissa Chipres. I'm a newly found staff to the planning family here for the City of Baldwin Park.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the request before you is a request for consideration of a conditional use permit for a light transit bus parking, maintenance, and dispatching facility within the industrial commercial zone and a zone variance to allow rear and side yard setback encroachments. It is located at 13404 Waco Street, applicant Baldo Paceta for Ideal Transit Incorporated. Case number is CP-872 and ZV-717. Okay. The applicant, Baldo Paceta, is proposing to establish a light transit bus parking, maintenance, and dispatch facility. The property is located at 13404 Waco Street on the west side of Waco Street, north of Garvey Avenue. The site is rectangular in shape and contains approximately 18,750 square feet of lot area and is improved with one portable modular office structure. The site accommodates 19 parking stalls and it includes one accessible stall. The proposed use is compatible with surrounding operations to the south and west. However, there are properties to the north and east that are single-family residences, which are buffered by the building itself. Since the facility is near residential zones, planning staff has added conditions of approval to ensure that activities will not have any adverse impact on those properties. As you can see in the staff report, Condition 3 states that the applicant shall provide walls to enclose the existing vehicle maintenance bay to reduce noise, obnoxious odors, and to keep working areas out of the line of sight of adjacent properties. Condition 8 prohibits the applicant from outdoor storage of automobile parts and miscellaneous equipment, including storage in the parking lot or driveway areas during business hours and overnight. And Condition 9 states that there shall be no parking or storage of Ideal Transit buses on public streets and that all vehicle storage will be kept in Ideal Transit Incorporated property. Staff has reviewed the application and operational characteristics and has determined that with the added conditions of approval, the proposed business will not have any adverse impacts on the adjacent properties. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution PC 18-13, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Baldwin Park adopting the findings of fact and approving a conditional use permit to allow the operation of light transit bus parking, maintenance, and dispatching facility within the industrial commercial zone, and a zone variance to allow rear and side yard setback encroachments at 13404 Waco Street for applicant Baldo Paceta on behalf of Ideal Transit Incorporated. Again, case number CP-872 and ZV-717. This concludes staff's presentation.
All right. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak on this, you can step up to the mic. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and residence.
Good evening, Commissioner, Mr. Chairperson. My name is Baldo Paceta. I'm the owner of Ideal Transit and also the property located at 13404 Waco Street. And I'm just here to answer any of your questions if you have any. Thank you.
All right. Well, don't go nowhere. I just wanted to know, is there hours of operation there?
We operate Monday through Friday, and the buses leave from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m.
All right. So that Won't bother any of the residents as far as I know.
No, sir.
Does anyone else have any questions for him?
One question I have is,
Yes, sir.
how many buses are actually storing there at that facility?
Overnight, it's the numbers that we proposed. We have different locations, and sometimes, when they need assistance, like they need, additional oil or something, water, different buses just, swim by for a few minutes and then they leave. Okay. But it's just, what is proposed.
My only concern is from the looks of that picture that we saw, the aerial view from the top
Yes.
down. I don't know if we can go back to that.
Yeah, we cover a very large area, Mr. Vice Chairperson. With Ideal Transit, we have vehicles that, in the entire San Gabriel Valley, from the 210, from Pasadena, Altadena, all the way to Rancho Cucamonga. And we keep it going down the south, going south all the way to Ontario. And, Rancho Palos Verdes, Redondo, it's a huge area that we cover. We transport over 2,000 developmentally disabled people for the state on a daily basis.
Totally understandable. My only concern is
I understand.
Is that
The picture doesn't
driveway?
look good.
Is that driveway in case of a fire? There won't be a way to get through there to get to, let's say, a bus.
Yeah, like I
fire
said,
in the
this is
back.
during the day. Usually those buses, you can see the parking lot is pretty much empty. From 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. We work in split schedules. Sometimes drivers, they come in, they do a quick service or something like that, and then they leave.
Okay.
So that's during the day, during peak, rush hours. But by 6 a.m., everything is back to normal.
All right. If you could promise me that there won't be buses lined up like that at the end of the night, then we're good.
You got it.
All right. Are there any more questions? All right.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Good night.
All right. Does anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Is there a motion to pass?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. I believe we have the officer's report. Is that?
No, we're going to take a motion to continue the abatement one.
Oh, we're having a motion to continue the abatement.
To the next planning commission meeting.
Does anyone?
I'll second the motion.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, did you make the motion? You made the
Yes.
motion yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I made the motion. Sorry.
So that's continued to the next planning commission meeting.
All right. Now we have reports of the officers. Is there any reports?
I do not have a report to give at this moment. However, I just did a little research going back on some of the questions with respect to the zoning code only. There is a 10-foot required separation between buildings in the RG and R3, not in the R1-7500 and R1. However, I would imagine that for fire safety prevention, we would keep it similar at 10 feet regardless. And as far as accessory structures, there's another section in the zoning code that talks about accessory structures, and it states that accessory structures, with the exception of an attached or detached garage, an accessory structure shall not be located in front of the main building or directly between the main building and the street. And another section does state, including detached garages may not be located within the required side or rear yard area if the required side or rear yard is adjacent to a street or abuts another R1-7500 or R1 zone property. So there is some wiggle room there with respect to whether or not accessory structures can exist in side yard areas. And again, I think we'd have to take it on a case-by-case basis to make sure it's designed properly for fire safety.
Okay, I believe though is if there is a building adjacent to his backyard, that they're required to have 5 yard separation, and then he has 5 yards, which creates the 10-yard distance, right?
Correct.
So that would answer your question. It would be 5 feet back. All right, we come to staff communications. I would like to know if anyone found anything out, if it's still continuing with the Erindale. I know we have some, I believe, injunctions or lawsuits against Erindale along with El Monte for the toxic waste dumps. And I was just wondering if there was any current information on that.
I have not received any newer current information. I just know that it's still ongoing. I'm not sure if Mr. Olivas has any new updates regarding that.
No, actually, the city attorney is handling that matter, so I don't have that information for you. I can send an email to the planning commission if you want.
Yes, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, I will make a note of that.
Yeah, because they tried having a secret city council meeting in Erindale when they first started this, and we all found out and showed up to support it, to support them not putting up a toxic waste dump. So I would like to continue with that, because if something happens over there, all the surrounding cities are at jeopardy. So, all right, thank you for that. And with that, I believe we need a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now adjourned.